right, so welcome back to the Pop Culture Corner, guys. My name's Ty, and I'm the host. Today, I get to talk to one of my favorite people, one of the persons that first let us interview him way back when. It seems like, it's been forever now, but no. And he's got some new stuff churning in the wheels, and we don't have too much time. So without further ado, welcome Mr. Sean O'Connell back to the show. Super glad to see you sporting the Batman shirt. I know today's a special day.
Today's a special day.
Yes.
I should have a Spider-Man shirt on, though. I really should be wearing one of my Spider-Man shirts.
That's okay. Listen, a long time ago, seems like forever ago, we asked you to come on and talk about the Snyder Cut. You were writing a book about the Snyder Cut, and that story of tragedy, chaos, miracles, and you had hinted that you wanted to continue writing, and that you were going to continue writing. It was just what story was going to be told. So I know you got into a little bit of it, but so what's this new idea that you have? What's Sean O'Connell's motivation these days?
Sure. So the second book is called With Great Power.
Which
and
I love.
It's a Spider-Man focused book, and it zeroes in on his journey through Hollywood, essentially, from his earliest days in the 1970s with Nicholas Hammond and the television show that went to prime time, and the Japanese Spider-Man television show.
Oh my God.
All the way through till now. And really, Tyler, what I wanted to get into was, how did these different creators over the years solve the problem of bringing Spider-Man from the page to the screen, right? Like, how do you live action recreate some of these stories that we love? And I think we take a lot of this stuff for granted when you sit down and talk to the different people who had to really crack the code in terms of using visual effects and using practical effects as much as they could to try to bring the Marvel comics to life. And so over the course of telling the story, it gets a little bit into the genesis of the comic book genre as a sort of force to be reckoned with. From the early 2000s to now, and a little bit of how Marvel had to prove itself as a brand. But my thesis was that, like, in this golden age of comic book movies, which has been happening for the better part of 20 years now, I think Spider-Man is the most successful. He's the most influential, because of his ability to bridge two different studios, which no other character has been able to do.
Ever.
Because of his hand in, three of the five most successful franchises, whether it's the Avengers, the MCU, and the Spider-Man movies alone,
Right.
he's a reason for those being as successful as they are. So I wanted to explore that. I wanted to get into that. And Spider-Man's always been my favorite character, but I never stopped long enough to sort of put all that together. And so that's the sort of fuel behind this book.
Okay, and that's what I was going to ask, is why Spider-Man? So what is Spider-Man, like, as a character, what does he mean to you, and why this story of all? Because there you could have went so many different ways with how you wanted to explore the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the retelling of these comic stories that we love, but you chose Spider-Man to be that kind of bridge, right? Same thing with the studios. He's your bridge into this larger story.
For sure. I mean, he's always been my favorite character. I collected a ton of comics growing up, but I grabbed every title that Spider-Man put out, essentially, because I loved his humor, his sense of humor. I think he has one of the best rogues gallery. I love the different villains that he faces. I connected with the character of Peter Parker. And so in speaking with everybody who got to the heart of what works for him on screen, they all use the term relatability. And I realized that the reason why I connected with him is what made him special and unique to Stan Lee, who created him. Like, Stan Lee, at the time when he created Spider-Man, got to the point where he was rolling out different superheroes, and he got to the point where he was like, what if I made one who was as much like us as anybody could be,
And that's what I was going to say, is I think what Stan Lee and Ditko captured there was truly remarkable with the relatability. Like, Batman had a sense, he has a relatability, like, in a weird way, right? Because he's got no powers.
Sure.
He's just a regular guy with money doing the right thing. But with Spider-Man, it was a whole new escape of like relatability for who who is the people who are the people buying comics? Okay, it's this person. We'll put him in
Yes.
put him in a superhero outfit,
Right.
give him some powers and let him run. He has all the problems of dating, high school, then we get to college. So I mean,
Financial
Spider-Man's
issues. Yeah,
remarkable.
yeah. Financial, like all these different things that what you're seeing in your day to day. And then almost asking you then, if you were in his shoes, what would you do? That's what you end up when you're reading a Spider-Man story, you get around to the point of just like, yeah, how would I react to this? How would
Yeah.
I, if my loved ones were in trouble, if I was struggling to pay my bills, what would I do in these instances? Like the whole idea of him letting the thief go past him, who ends up killing his uncle, is something we could all like. Who hasn't made a bad decision? That's maybe hopefully hasn't
Which
cost
led
us
to
to that
something
extent.
worse. Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully not to that extent, but like that whole concept of with great power comes great responsibility is really, it resonated with me in a huge way. So, but also I learned with the Snyder Cut book, that being the first book that I ever worked on, is that you have to love the topic that you're going to write about,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Because you're going to immerse yourself in every aspect of it. And so, I entertained a couple of different ideas, but I couldn't come up with anything else that I would want to spend the next year to a year and a half just really immersing myself. And it was the Spider-Man movies. And there was enough there between the Raimi films, the Mark Webb films, and everything that's happening in the MCU right now with the
Oh
character. I
my
thought all of
god.
this was fascinating.
And I mean, speaking of, I mean, if there's one, because we could talk about Toby, we could talk about Andrew, we could talk about Tom individually, but
Sure.
I think with No Way Home, I mean, I think we're far enough in where spoilers are okay, but
I hope so. Yeah.
I hope so, right? I mean, this movie was truly a ribbon on the character, right? It was just a bow tie on this generational character. Everyone had their Spider-Man, whether it be Toby, Andrew, or Tom.
Right.
But this movie really, like, I mean, for you, did it deliver on everything it promised as a fan first?
So much.
Yeah.
To the point where I didn't truly feel the impact of it until the second time I went back to see it, because the first time I think I was just in shock.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
and you really are, you're kind of nitpicking it while you're watching it of like, how are you going to bring them together?
Right.
What are they going to do when they are together? And just the critic part of my brain I couldn't turn off. So I'm watching it through that lens. But then the second time I was able to go, I really was able to just sort of sit back and be like, I'm seeing all three Spider-Man together on screen. Like, it's an impossibility that this movie exists. And the fact that it is good, as good as it is,
Yes.
really blows me away.
The story, like, and that's, I was one of the last holdouts that, I didn't want to truly believe that they're, or not. It's not that I didn't want to believe. I was okay being wrong with it,
Sure.
but I was one of the ones who was like, I'm holding out hope because I call it the WandaVision effect. Like when you let
Yeah.
your expectation
Sure.
rise to a degree where it cannot be, it's no longer attainable to enjoy something. So I was, stayed back and shut out. But while I was watching it the first time, said to myself the same thing. Like a tear came to my eyes. Like, I can't believe I'm seeing this right now.
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe this is real. And it actually, because the theories were out there. I got to talk to the editor Jeffrey Ford about what he thought of the initial leak, like the big leak. Because that, I mean, as a filmmaker, right, you try to keep that secret.
You mean Andrew and the blue screen?
Yeah, sadly, from we could talk about the source of the leaks and
Sure.
do all that, but like, I think that ruined a part of it for a lot of people.
But
Because
he was so convincing on his press tour, though, that even
he
with,
he was.
I'm looking at a photo of him in the costume, but then I'm listening to his interviews and I'm still thinking like, is this Photoshop? Like, he's
Yeah,
so
he kind of
convincing.
deserves an Oscar for his performance before the movie.
Yeah,
It's
true.
because and I know Toby was nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
He was a different beast altogether. But once you were finally realizing like what was happening, what you're seeing, I mean, Andrew, would you be okay with seeing an Amazing Spider-Man 3?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Because
I write a lot in the book about Andrew's introduction into the franchise, and then the difficulties that were sort of foisted onto the Amazing Spider-Man franchise of Sony really trying hard to build a cinematic universe out of what they had there. And, they eventually come to terms with the fact that the best way forward for the character is to plug him into an already existing cinematic universe,
Yes.
which was the smart decision. But Andrew really suffered as a result of that.
Yes,
Like,
he did.
he's a very good part of movies that have a lot of good things in them, but didn't really know what they were supposed to be, right? Too many
Right.
cooks in the kitchen. And when you
Yeah.
hear him talk about Amazing Spider-Man 2, he knew, he understood what was happening. So I think he needed closure, deserved closure, more so than even Toby did. And I know Toby had Spider-Man 4 as a potential that was sort of dangling in front of him, and he and Raimi didn't really get to end the franchise on their own terms. But I think the specter of Andrew not being able to continue would have hung over him for a really long period of time if he didn't get No Way Home. Now, do I think he needs to do Amazing Spider-Man 3? Like, absolutely not. This could be the closing of the book if he wanted it to be, but I think he deserves it if he wants it, for sure. And I think the fans really want it.
Yeah, there's a lot of speculation as to, some Madam Web news came out a little while ago with Dakota Johnson, and you see what Sony's kind of doing. I mean, I'm excited for Morbius just to see what it is. I know, a lot of people are reluctant. I don't know if they loved Venom 2 as much as they loved that post-credit sequence. That was really what garnered its attention.
Sure.
So Morbius, something about it has been intriguing me, and it's drawing me in without even doing too much marketing. I haven't seen too much about it, but there's still this, like, the Sony Marvel Cinematic Universe, if we want to call it that, right?
Yeah.
SMCU.
Right.
If it runs parallel to the MCU and Spider-Man's the bridge,
right,
then and we've heard about them talking about potential, borrow here, borrow there, send back and forth. So there's so much potential, and that all started with such a terrible thing, right? Marvel, I mean, I'm sure you get into it in your book, but the way that Marvel sold off some of their characters in the late 90s to avoid bankruptcy, where the problem persisted. I'm sure it's something you get into your book.
Well, the one statistic that I can share that gives me hives thinking about it is that when Sony went back over to Marvel and offered to buy Spider-Man, right? Marvel at that time was really struggling with bankruptcy. And they turned around and they said, hey, not only can you have Spider-Man, but you can have all of the characters that we own except for the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, which at that point were licensed to Fox.
Right.
So everyone who's in the MCU right now, they offered them to Sony for $25 million. $25 million, which is a drop in the bucket.
Right.
And the Sony brass at that time said, essentially, no one cares about all those other characters. We really only want Spider-Man. Give us Spider-Man for $10 million. And Marvel tried to shop the deal around to other studios and nobody bit. So they said, all right, you can have Spider-Man for $10 million and we'll hold on to the other guys, which is why they had to start the MCU with Iron Man and why they had to start it with Captain America and Thor.
Right.
And then, slowly but surely. So like Iron Man was a Paramount movie. And
a lot of people forget that was actually a Paramount production as well. So I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah, they just needed distribution help. And eventually they wanted to get to the point where they were producing their own movies. They wanted to become Marvel Studios.
Exactly. Marvel Studios at that time didn't exist. And a lot of people forget these things. Like, the start wasn't guaranteed. This was all a roll of the dice, to be fair.
And really, if you sit down and break down the risk that was Iron Man, like, if that doesn't work, and they had Hulk right behind it. Like, that was weird how that opened in May and Hulk opened in June, right? They were the 1-2 punch. But people forget what a risk Downey was at that time.
He himself fundamentally,
yes,
had such a cloud about him, bad boy. It almost fits too perfectly. Like, when you hindsight, of course, looking at it, like, I couldn't imagine, like, them pitching this idea, Favreau pitching the idea like, all right, he's our Iron Man, when he's himself surrounded with a lot of not
Sure.
negative energy, but he's had a rocky past.
Well, there's
But
an
it fit.
interesting. Oh, it fit Tony Stark perfectly, but there's an interesting component to that. The studio almost didn't want to. When you take on a talent for a project of that size, they buy into insurance in case anything happens throughout the course of the production, and they almost didn't want to insure Downey like that, and that could have stopped that production in its tracks, because
Right.
I know there's a lot of talk about that Tom Cruise was almost going to play Tony Stark, but that never really materialized. It wasn't anywhere close to people the way that they thought it was. But.
Yeah, and I think that is a common misconception, because
Mm-hmm.
first off, I have a hard time. I don't know. I just don't think it would ever fit. And I see a lot of people like in the scoops for Doctor Strange 2.
Oh yeah.
I keep warning people, like, you have to just be careful what you read, because they're gonna throw everything at the wall now. So yeah, Tom Cruise is Iron Man. They're gonna throw that at the wall and see if it sticks.
Sure.
And then blame rewrites for if it doesn't happen. Right. So it's already. I don't know. I don't know how you feel about all that, but I really, Iron Man for me. I just don't. I don't want anyone else donning that outfit.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Whereas what's fascinating with what Sony has kind of done with the multiverse, because we have to see how Marvel is going to treat the multiverse moving forward. Sony, in a really interesting way, through the course of No Way Home, has backed into a brilliant situation where they now have existing worlds, right?
Yeah.
Where you asked about Andrew before, it would be very easy to imagine a scenario moving forward where Andrew is the Spider-Man of the Sony movies,
Sony side. Yeah.
Right? And Tom exists as the Spider-Man, and there's no audience confusion in that state.
Exactly.
Like DC is trying to do something with Batman where they kind of have like Michael Keaton and they have Ben Affleck who might show up in the Flash, but they also have the Robert Pattinson one, which isn't going to connect to anything. And I know that there's audience confusion. I know that people are saying like, where does Robert Pattinson fit into the other DC movies? And you got to say to them like, oh no, he's not.
And that's a natural problem that I knew DC was going to have, because they generally as a studio, they, especially as of recent, have been very, very they not forthcoming really in anything, whether it be numbers or future. Just because, I mean, that's right. I just read an article from, I believe it was Deadline, the Warner Media Discovery is officially greenlit, or just beat some obstacle that it was waiting on very early on. So I mean, this merger is hanging in the distance. There's just so much confusion for fans for where the studio is. But when you look at Marvel, there's just not that confusion. Even when they give you a so-so Eternals film, the audience is so loyal to Marvel that they just have a different grasp on consumers, and it's great. I don't. There's people that knock Marvel for being a little bit cornier. I embrace it. Look what they've done.
I also
give them the world.
I give them a ton of credit for really figuring out ahead of everyone else how to balance the film and television side. Like
finally
we're at a point where I mean, tell yourself this 10 years ago that a Hawkeye television series is going to reintroduce the Kingpin.
Right. Oh, right. Yeah. Right after you see Charlie Cox in a film. I mean, and you're just like, is this, and that was actually one of the things Marvel did struggle with, I think, with the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and then Agent Carter, right? And then the Netflix stuff, they didn't get their footing. Whether they're great projects is that aside.
Sure.
Like Marvel had promised to, teases into the larger universe, but never quite delivered. But then with the advent of Disney Plus, a new game was spawned. And I think other studios need to pay attention. Don't carbon copy the Marvel universe.
Right.
But look what they're doing. That's a structure. There it is. There's your structure.
Well,
That's how you
and
make it work.
to the point where, and this is what Sony is kind of now doing on the Spider-Man side. Like the mistake they made with Amazing Spider-Man 2, with the second Mark Webb film, was trying to do it all in one film. But
Yes.
now they have set up a system where you have 2 Venom films, you have a Morbius film coming, you have a Kraven the Hunter film that's going into production right now,
Hmm.
with Aaron Taylor Johnson and JC Chandor, who's is a very
Right.
strong director.
Yes.
This idea of Dakota Johnson playing Madam Web. There's an idea of Olivia Wilde wanting to do a Spider-Woman movie.
Hmm.
They are establishing their universe film by film, which is
Yep.
what Marvel did early on. Now, can they build to a place where they introduce Miles Morales? Like, absolutely. You know, could
And I think that's what I'm waiting for, right? Is and that's I actually, a while back I even pitched that idea. Is that at this remember at this time I'm saying this, the idea of um Jesus, Toby and Andrew in
mm,
No Way Home is not official.
okay.
So, I said, I think it'd be really cool if Sony ran with Miles Morales as their Spider-Man. And
Mhm,
then the MCU kept Tom Holland and Peter Parker. But then, there comes the mentor thing. And
sure,
that's when I then said, oh, it'd be cool if Andrew Garfield got another shot and the age difference could work there because
absolutely.
Andrew is a little bit older. That because with Tom and Miles, there's I don't they're too similar in age. You
Mhm.
could make it work, but I don't know. There's something about it. I think Sony could really capitalize, especially with the popularity of Into the Spider-Verse and I'm sure Across the Spider-Verse.
Well,
Though that movie changed. I think for some people before No Way Home, that was their favorite Spider-Man movie.
it
Was an
was mine.
animated film.
It was mine
Yeah.
for sure, 100%. The way that they nail it, and you know that they wrote in the line, like they gave the line to Jamie Foxx about, "I just wish there was a black Spider-Man out there." Like that is so deliberate, to
It's
say,
that
"Oh,
so
yeah,
the theater actually like cheered for that
yeah,
because you knew there's only one Spider-Man they're referencing.
yeah."
Whether it be it's who they're talking about. So
And also, if they set up a system where they have Andrew working on the Sony side and Tom working on the other side, you could stagger the productions of those so that you literally are delivering another Spider-Man movie every year,
yeah,
without taxing out in addition to the animated movies that are coming, and in addition to the Madam Webs and the Cravens of the world. Like it's very easy to lay out a structure where you have Spider-Man content coming on the regular. Now, how interesting is it all going to be? That's to be told. But I think the second Venom hinted at the direction that they want the tone to go, and I think we're all still trying to figure out what that is. Like
yes,
if Morbius comes out and it's deeply serious, that might be strange because how will it fit with Venom? And then the
yes.
fact that they left a piece of the symbiote in the MCU, like that can be explored. They're laying so many threads down that can be picked up and investigated. And so
Yeah,
it's a wonderful time to be a Spider-Man fan.
it's a wonderful time to be a comic book. Like if you're a fan of adaptions
Yeah,
or retail, whatever you want to call it. If you're just a fan of like just these genres, like it's such a good time. And then you see the infighting when it comes to like the DC fans, specifically Zack Snyder's crowd. The infighting is, and Ben has been on this, and the only reason I bring it up is because you've written about it, you've explored that side of things.
sure. Yeah.
Um, uh, it's just seeing it on a day to day is it's just very ugly right now. And there's an aura around like DC that I just there's a taste in my mouth I can't quite get it out of.
Yeah, it's disheartening to see what has come of that fan base, but I honestly believe it's that fan base on social media, which I hope is a tiny sliver of it, because I know the Peacemaker is connecting with a larger audience. And it's not, Peacemaker might not be what a contingent of DC fans want, but there are plenty of people who are enjoying it. They liked Suicide Squad, they like the Harley Quinn animated show, and they're digging what Peacemaker is trying to do.
Yeah, me. Yeah,
And so
I just want good stories to be told, man.
yeah,
That's like at the heart of it, at the brunt of it. I just want, that's why I'm okay with Robert Pattinson's Batman. Um, a whole trilogy on a different world, right? I can understand that.
Mhm.
But there is the problem with the general audience right now. You have 17 Batmen appearing in 1 year.
Yeah.
It's really hard for a general audience member to be like,
It
because
is.
now they expect the universe.
Yeah.
We've tailored general audiences to the idea that this movie, a solo movie, is hard to come by these days, right? Like just a a one and done.
Yeah.
It's always like it's a universe that studios are really like, that's the money. That's where the money is.
Of
So,
course. Yeah.
I mean, do you like it, Peacemaker?
Very much so.
I love it. I
Not only
loved
do
it.
I love it, he wasn't a character that I really loved out of the James Gunn movie. I thought he was entertaining for what he was, and I thought it was fine in small bits. But when they said that he was the character that they were going to make a series around,
Right off the bat, too.
I was
I mean,
surprised.
I was surprised as well. But I think
Yeah.
the show, it's funny because I feel like Gunn, he's like, for a lot of people, he's hit or miss. Like, you either love him or hate him.
Yeah.
And I guess I can see why. But with Peacemaker, I was so entertained, and I got to watch it early. And it's super fun, and I can't really, you know what I mean.
I think the butterfly story is really fascinating. I think it's a great story.
It is a great story.
Yeah.
And when I first heard about it, though, I was like, wow, this really sounds similar to Starro.
Yeah.
You know, like with the mind control like aspect of it. I was like, well, all right.
Yeah.
All right, okay. And I ran with it. And I think that the series has done a great job. And then again, so that finale is coming, and we just we're off the back of Book of Boba Fett finale.
Right.
Speaking of Disney and Disney as a whole, I mean, I'm a general audience member when it comes to Star Wars. I'm not as ingrained in it as everybody else, or passionate about it. I watch it and I'm pleased by it. This show, I was entertained, but it never escalated past that.
No, a lot of these shows are not appointment television for me just yet.
Right.
Peacemaker might be the closest thing to appointment television, but like you, I got to see it early, and I binged right through it.
Yeah, I went right. I wish I waited a little bit.
But with Boba Fett, there were 2 weeks that went past where I didn't watch it, and I didn't feel compelled to catch up on it. And it was only when people started talking about episodes 5 and 6, of sort of saying it veers more into Mandalorian territory. And then, so I watched those 2 episodes, and I thought that they were fantastic. It's crazy that we are, as a pop culture society, to the point where we nitpick a lot of the stuff that we are given, because if you just step back a few years and try to explain what we're getting now on a weekly basis, pumped right into our homes, it's pretty insane.
It is insane
what they're able to do. So,
and it's great. It's great. And that's what I think a lot of people, like, especially, hardcore DC fans, need to get is we need to start being grateful for what we like, the age that we're living in. Because, of course, comic books have, their golden age, silver age, right? That the phases it went through.
Sure.
Like, we're in this this beginning of this new saga, a new story, the adaptation of those comic books, right? We're in like the golden age for it right now, and instead of being mourning, Zack Snyder, he's not making DC movies. Ben Affleck might be done. Henry Cavill might be done. Like, all right, well, let's turn around and be grateful for what we do have and what we are getting. Right?
For sure. What I would love, though, the one thing I would love for DC to be able to do is to build towards a significant story the way that the MCU built to the Infinity Saga, because I think that there are some tremendous, universe altering stories that you could tell with the DC heroes. And I'm not quite sure if they're ever going to get organized enough to the point where they put that together. Like, it's still, and we probably discussed this the first time I came on the show, like, it's staggering to me that there isn't another Justice League movie with anyone directing it, on DC's slate. Like, how are they not pushing some format of a Justice League movie to get fans excited about? It's crazy to me.
Yeah, I've lost so much faith in it, and I like Black Adam. Looks like it's gonna be fun. Or looks like it's gonna be really like serious and it's gonna tell a story that you know, it doesn't actually need to connect to any larger universe yet.
Sure. Right.
It's taking place at a time where, you know, way before, you know, JSA stuff, right?
Right.
So it doesn't need to try so hard to connect to the larger universe yet. Maybe a post-credit scene. I don't know. You know, we'll see where that goes.
Right.
But, and I think that's where DC has really thrived, is the movies that didn't try to connect so hard to the larger universe. Shazam, for what it is, I think is one of the better films that were made post Snyder.
It was fun.
Yeah, Joker, in its own right, is cinematic gold,
Which may
right?
get a
So,
sequel, right? That may
which
spawn a
now
sequel
may
as
get
well
a
too.
sequel. Where are you on that? I don't know. I don't know about that.
I only want them to do it if they truly feel like they have a great idea. Because I liked what Joaquin Phoenix and Todd Phillips put together. I like the fact that they weren't compelled to build towards a sequel. You know, they had a story they wanted to tell and they told it. So if they have another one that they want to tell, I would love more time with that character.
Okay.
But I really want
Fair
to make sure
enough.
that they have a story that they want to tell going forward. So
And I think that's what they said too, is like they're not doing it unless the story is exactly what it needs to be.
Yeah.
You know, and because it's not, that movie could, that's a movie that could exist on its own,
yeah.
on its own, by itself. Nothing ever, no, it's not, no connecting tissue ever, right? I think it is. And maybe that's the way Robert Pattinson's Batman will be. I don't know. I don't think so. I feel like with Robert Pattinson's Batman, they're gonna lay the seed work for a potential, you know, just in case.
Okay, gotcha.
That's what I think personally.
What and you know what? We live in a world now, or a time now
We live in
when
a world. We live in a society
where the Cavills of the world and the Afflecks of the world could come back in a heartbeat. You know, like
look at No Way Home.
as an example, No Way
Doors
Home
you
is
thought
an
were
example.
shut forever.
Look at Scream. You know,
Yeah.
look at the Scream character coming. Ghostbusters Afterlife. This is the legacy sequel. This is the idea of the legacy sequel. So it'd be very easy for DC in 2 to 3 years to come up with an idea where they were like, we need to bring everybody back for whatever reason. You know, this is a story that we're trying to tell and we need everyone to come back. And that's all it takes. You know, you sign a contract and then you're there. We're seeing it happen on every 6 months. Another legacy franchise is coming back. Nothing is off the table for this. And No Way Home is a perfect example of that. Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, it is kind of haunting. Like, you know,
Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park is another.
Jurassic Park. The poster came out today, I think, right, June 10th. I feel like June's their favorite month. Jurassic. Jurassic franchise likes June, so that's no surprise. But I'm excited for that. I like the world buildings. You know, I like the connected universes. But I also like, I thrive. I love stories that I don't know. You know, there's this new age of cinema, and if it's not like a huge sci-fi blockbuster, it's, who knows if it's going to make it to theaters anymore.
Right.
The theaters are struggling. Like, I talk in the Showcase all the time, and like, you know, for better or worse, do you think that streaming is going to inevitably become the way that we see content?
No, I don't think so.
It's a weird question, but I like to ask everybody because
I mean, I think that the theatrical experience is always going to exist, and there's always going to be films that are made for that, specifically for that experience. I think that the pandemic put a real dent in casual audiences' desire to go to the theaters. You know, the people who saw 1 to 2 movies a year, they just don't go to those 1 to 2 movies a year anymore. But the people who went on the regular will go back to going on the regular because that's the way that they want to experience movies. But the pandemic, I think, rapidly ascended the number of talent that goes over to streaming.
Yeah.
The way that creators are playing around with, like, let's use James Gunn as an example. You know, he directs Suicide Squad, and then they turn around and they say, well, now we're going to give you 8 hours to tell a story. You know, how do you want to play with that? Well, of course, you know, I think the majority of the storytellers are going to say, yeah, I would love that time, because even I got to interview Cena for the Peacemaker, and I said, I really think this was a true 180 for the character from where we saw him go. And he goes, it wasn't a 180 at all. He goes, we just had more time. We had more time to explore him, and we had more time to put him into different situations and see how he would react. And so it's interesting because the concept of television used to be, trying to get onto a series that you could extend for multiple seasons. But streaming means that you don't have to do that anymore. You can do a one and done, and we all as an audience, we're okay with that. We almost kind of expect it now at this point. So
because we'll see the character again in some form or fashion, unless proven otherwise, right? Like unless the character dies or something, regardless. But with Peacemaker, we'll probably see him in another project after this. If it's not Peacemaker season 2, I would assume that I don't know. I guess that's my.
I don't think anything. I don't think anything is sacred and only to the screen anymore. Like we now see Star Wars content on television, and we see Marvel content and DC content on television. Yep. The last real holdout would be like if they did a James Bond series, right? Like you only see James Bond movies, and they're only movies, and they're all, but like I don't think it's that far off to say like if they
even Lord of the Rings is now going to be TV or streaming, right? Exactly. Like the first look, one of the first looks came out today via Vanity Fair, and it's beautiful. I'm super excited about it. Like as a series, I think it's going to be the next Game of Thrones. Or has the potential.
Yeah,
and then you got other exciting projects like Zack Snyder just announced these people are rounding out the cast of Rebel Moon.
There you go.
Throw some concept art with concept art there, which I mean it looks really Star Warsy, but I think that's always what the plan or what he had said. It was heavily influenced by Star Wars.
He is such Star Wars junkie too. Like I love the fact that he's getting to tell his sci-fi story with no real parameters. Like a lot of creative people,
literally no barrier, no financial barrier, no storytelling barriers, and like that's the Snyderverse. That's what his he's getting older. He's getting up there in age. Like he's not going to be making movies, or I don't think he'll be making movies till he's 90.
Right.
So while he's happy and limitless with Netflix, fans of it should be excited.
Don't call it the Snyderverse on Twitter though. You'll get shouted down. You'll get shouted.
Yeah, you will get.
But it's interesting because like even the creative people who've gone over to Lucasfilm to legitimately do a Star Wars movie, we have just as many filmmakers who have had to leave projects at Lucasfilm because they can't play within the parameters of that sandbox, as we have had successful people keep going on. So that is an interesting situation. And for part of that reason alone, I'm thrilled that Zach is on his own at Netflix, being able to do something called Rebel Moon, which, we all look at it and we're like, well, hey, you're clearly doing your Star Wars movie.
Yeah. I mean, it's
his own thing. It's to the point where I just was able to see a very early cut of The Adam Project, which is Ryan Reynolds' new film with Sean Levy. They just did Free Guy together, and they have made a very original and extremely emotional, but really cool, badass science fiction story. And it's kind of like Time Cop, and it's kind of like Field of Dreams, and it's a little bit like Back to the Future, but like because it's Netflix, they're able to just sort of do what they wanted to do, and then it was terrific. And I think that originality is now found in streaming. So I can't fault streaming if it's chipping into the theatrical experience, because we're still getting rewarding content. But I don't think theaters will ever go away for sure.
Yeah, and like because you relate it, and I talked to even like the editors about it. There's something about like that moment, right, where Andrew and Toby walk on screen, where Cap catches Mjolnir, right? Those moments that you're reminded of that really take your breath away, like that communal experience. It's just simply not the same as sitting at home, whether you have a theater in your house like Zack Snyder does, or whether you have the you're watching it on your phone. It's just never going to be the same. And that's that's okay. I guess studios will now be faced with the challenge of deciding what goes where, right? And how much
For
money
sure.
goes into what. I mean, look at Netflix. For the second year in a row, they have planned for one new movie a week or one
Right.
new thing a week
Right.
for the entire year. So
So
my worry is that uh, uh, quantity over quality. I'm sorry, I
for sure.
missed it. So
But they cover
because
a lot of genres, like you'll see YA, young adult adaptations, or you'll see a Western or some such. They really
right,
they kind of shift it up. They're not under the gun of the way a studio would be to refine the type of thing that they're releasing into theaters. But what I think you're going to have to get to is filmmakers who fight to keep their film in theaters. Denis Villeneuve was not going to let Dune go to a streaming
unplugged
service.
my headphones.
Oh, go ahead.
Fucking my knee. All right, back.
I was saying that, like, Chris Nolan is not going to go to a streaming service.
Yeah,
Steven Spielberg was not going to let West Side Story go to Disney Plus. It was going to theaters first. Denis Villeneuve was not letting Dune go to HBO Max.
oh my god, Dune.
These are theatrical experiences.
Right.
So, and I think you're going to still see filmmakers who fight to make sure that their films are seen on the big screen. I wouldn't be surprised if Zach, I know that Army of the Dead went to some theaters, and I bet you when Rebel Moon gets released, it's going to go to some theaters because he
Yeah,
probably works that into his contract.
I would. Yeah, I think it was Cinemark last time, right?
Yes. Yep.
Cinemark got it. We
Well,
don't
because the
have
big
one
chains won't carry Netflix stuff. AMC and Regal refuse to carry Netflix stuff.
because they're direct competition at this point.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think a world, and I've talked about it before, maybe Netflix buying a theater chain and allowing you to, like, if you have Netflix, go see one of their films, like whether it be not everything would be in the theater.
Yeah.
But like the big things that come out, The Witcher, maybe not because it's a TV show. But the bigger films that they produce, like you could just, if you have the highest paying Netflix account,
yeah.
the whatever it is, that includes like 2 movies a week at their own theater.
It's not a bad
Could
idea.
be a future that we live in.
Yeah. Because that movie, The Adam Project, that I mentioned earlier, the Ryan Reynolds film, would absolutely benefit from being seen on the big screen. Like, it has some true, like, thrilling sci-fi elements to it. So
yeah, and I mean, I don't know how you thought about it. I just watched it again because the first time around I didn't like it, but that the movie Don't Look Up with everybody. I mean,
everybody.
I mean, what Netflix, like, even stuff like that, I would have liked to see in a theater. Like movies like that, like kind of it was a lot more serious than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Thought it was going to be like a straight comedy.
It gets pretty heavy.
It gets pretty heavy on me. Yeah. But I would have loved to see that in theaters. And like, I did this multiple times, like in college and stuff. Like, saw a movie every single week, every single day for a week. Did like a 7 for 7, and they're not like, one of the movies was the Moby Dick one with Tom Holland and Chris Hemsworth.
Oh, In the Heart of the Sea.
In the Heart of the Sea, right? And then the other one was the one, the Boss Globe one covers the
Spotlight.
Spotlight. Thank you. You're so much better at that than I am. But those are movies like that I liked seeing in theaters.
Yep.
But would they come out in theaters now? I don't know.
Yeah, probably not. No,
I don't want to see those go away.
They'd go to Apple TV Plus or something like that.
Which, by the way, fucking Apple TV Plus with at least the morning show, Foundation, and then Invasion, and then C.
Yeah, Momoa's movie.
Hit after hit after hit.
Yep.
And I keep recommending people get Apple TV Plus. Right. And if you have an iPhone, you might already have it, not know it.
Yeah.
Because they give you a year. It's doing big things. I like Apple TV. I don't know if you've watched those shows I just talked about.
I did. Yeah, I watched them all. And The After Party is pretty funny and kind of wild so far right now. And there's another movie, another Adam Scott film called, no, it's a TV series. I'm sorry. It has John Turturro in it. I forget the name of it right now, but it's pretty bizarre. It's like a workplace drama, and it's got some sci-fi elements to it. Yeah, okay. These streamers are all trying exciting things, and that's why, I mean, people need to start checking them out.
Yeah, man. So we'll start wrapping up, but I want to get your thoughts on, well, a couple things. So do you have an idea about when this book is gonna, hit the shelves?
November 1st.
That's
And
guaranteed.
that is
Impending doom.
well, yes, pending issues happening behind the scenes. It is on a fast track to hit November 1st, and it's part of the reason is because this is very much the year of Spider-Man. Sony's been very cooperative with this book, which has been terrific. They've helped me set up a multiple really important interviews. And I didn't realize this at the time, but it's landing at a time when there's a number of really exciting things happening, because May of this year marks the 20th anniversary of the first Sam Raimi, which was 2002.
Yep.
In August marks the 60th anniversary of the first appearance in Amazing Fantasy, which was
15, right?
August 1962. Yeah, 1962.
Yeah.
And then we have Into the Spider-Verse. The sequel is coming out in October. This book comes out in November. And then in December, there's talk of a Spider-Man box set, like a box set of all the movies being available, because I believe that the Disney Sony streaming service, the streaming deal that they have together with Disney Plus, that a lot of those movies are now going to be available on that service. So this might be the last time to sort of buy them in a physical media version. So
right.
it's my hope that this book, becomes like the
kind of like the Snyder Cut timing.
Yeah. That like, hey,
the timing is perfect.
Here are all those movies, and then here's the story behind the production of them. So,
well, that's awesome, man. I can't wait to read it. I read your the Snyder Cut book in like a night and a half. So I really look forward to, and I would love to have you back on after to talk about, more about it and stuff like that. But
anytime.
Here, one last thing. So if you had to say,
yes,
if there was another book that you could see yourself writing, what would be the next thing?
It's a really good question.
Because you seem like you don't want to stop. You seem like you're getting into this, and
I don't want to stop, but it was a mistake to do 2 books back to back, because they are a lot of. They're a lot of
people
work.
Forget. Like I don't know. I don't know if anyone else pays attention to you. I know they do, but I mean, the amount of shit you do on a daily basis is remarkable to me, right? Like I was just watching your the Steve-O interview.
Oh yeah, he was great.
He's so funny.
That is not safe for work, that interview.
Oh my god, no, it's not. No.
His stories
just the way it starts off too. He's just like talking about how hot the other guys are. You're sitting there like,
yeah, he's crazy. He's crazy.
Or like then you had a Roland Emmerich on, which I haven't seen Moonfall yet, but that I do want to get out there and watch it. I don't know.
Here's the thing. I don't know if I want to stay in the realm of comic book movies, because I think that there's a lot of stories to tell in that field, or if I want to branch off into something a little bit. It would still be entertainment based. It would still be film based, but I might detour out of the comic book realm just for a little bit and explore something else.
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
We shall see.
We shall see. But with great power comes great
responsibility. Yes.
And writing books is a great power. It really is. So, Sean, as always, it's a huge pleasure to have you on and to just get to talk to you in general. As you're a person that I've been watching and listening to for years now. So, to get to have a nice relationship with you is always really fun, and always look forward to hearing what you have to say.
My pleasure, dude. Thank you for having me on. I really, really appreciate it.
Of course. And everyone else, thank you for watching tonight. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, like the video, and share it across social media. Man, till next time. All right.